In today's first impressions video, we're looking at a submarine. Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff, and in today's first impressions video we're looking at Revel's Type 7 C/41 U-boat. It's 1/72 scale and it comes with some Pontos upgrades. So this is the 2019 re-release of the 2003 tool U-boat from Revel. Now this is the Platinum edition, so as per their other Platinum releases, you get some aftermarket included, and when it comes to ships and floaty things, that tends to be from Pontos, and what we get is part of, but not all of, the Pontos upgrade set that is available for the original release of this kit. So you won't have the resin parts in here, you won't have the brass screws, for example, and one or two other bits, but what you do get is the deck, some turned brass parts and some photo etch. Now the kit claims to be 832 parts in total, but I imagine that probably includes the Pontos set. I doubt that the plastic kit is that part heavy, to be honest, but we will get a better look in a minute when we look in. So this is a level 5. Now previously I have wondered exactly what makes a Revel kit so difficult, and often find that their difficulty levels don't really reflect how difficult the kit would really be to build. So I'll be interested to see if I think this actually is technically a difficult kit to build or not. As we look at the box, we get some nice artwork which shows the submarine submerged, or in the process of being submerged, as it's run down by a Flower class corvette over there, which links nicely into their Matchbox 172 Flower class corvette. And we have a sinking ship over there, which I guess the U-boat has done. Quite a nice little piece of artwork there. As we go to this side of the box, you can see we have some images of the built kit. Certainly looks fairly busy, doesn't it? We have a little bit of information about it in different languages, and some product information, contact details and the like. The sides really reflect the information that's on the top of the box, and then as we move around to this side we have a picture of the completed weathered model, which looks nice, a picture of the plastic parts, and then promoting some of their range of products, and then finally, which is a nice touch, the same as how Airfix do it, they've listed the Revel paints that would be needed for this. Upon opening the box, we've got a fairly intricate cardboard insert that helps stack the hull pieces, stopping them from getting damaged and scratched. So I really quite like that. There's even a little bit of foam there to protect the nose of the boat there. And then in the middle we've got all the plastic parts and various other bits and pieces, although I don't like the look of those decals. So let's have a look inside and see what we've got. So let's start with the instructions, and actually we have two sets of instructions. So what Revel do is they provide you with the original instructions for the original release kit, and then separately the separate instructions that Pontos would have produced but reworked slightly to remove the stuff that you actually don't get, and put that in separately. So there is no reference in here as to when to put etch in, when to use the brass parts or put the decks on or anything like that. So you have to use that instructions and this instructions together at the same time, and cross-reference, which makes a little bit more work. It would be nice if they put the whole thing into one nice hefty manual, but obviously there's a cost to that Revel don't want to spend. So let's take a look at the original instructions, the plastic kit instructions first. So we start with, it's an A4 colour, typical Revel build manual, stapled. Starts with a picture of the kit, which is always nice to see rather than some computer rendition of what it might look like. Then you get some safety advice, and then as we turn over, the familiar Revel sort of quick tips section, which is something that more and more companies are starting to do. So this is generic, it's the same on all of them, it doesn't apply to this kit particularly, so we've not got an aeroplane in the kit. Okay, that looks like our cover sheet for our decals. Then we have a key, and the key's explained in multiple languages all the way through. A more comprehensive key than most model companies, I've got to be honest, which probably not a bad thing. And that carries on here with decals, decal film, decal soft, and so on. Then we have the paint shout-outs, obviously all Revel paints, and as is normal with the Revel, lots of paint mixing, 90%, 46, 10%, 78. So a lot of people don't want to mess around with that hassle. I mean, look at that, 98% white, 2% that. You're going to do 98 drops and get to and make a whole load of stuff that might be just to paint, I don't know, one bar of something. So a lot of people like to swap out the colours, the Revel colours as a result. So yeah, then we have our sprue map. So we've got our 2 hull halves, and then we've got 4 sprues there. And something about contacting Revel if you need spare parts, and that is the UK address being given there. And we have a couple more sprues, and it would seem we've got some thread as well. And then we have an option for open and close that we have to consider before we get to the first step. So I guess there's nothing stopping you doing open on one side and closed on the other side. I quite often do that to try and show the 2 different looks. That way you can display a model one way, and then you can turn it around and change its direction in the display case and see the other side. Depends on how you're displaying it, of course. So we're starting with the bow torpedo doors, of which you've got 4, as you can see, and some part tubes. So we'll have to have a look and see how far we can see down there. So if you remember when I built the U9 from Dad's work, we extended the torpedo tubes in some places. So yeah, we've got how this works depending on which way you're doing it, and building up that center section, which I guess we will then fix into place. So yeah, putting our options in, a couple of hull supports, and then put the 2 parts together. Now I know just from taking the parts out to get to the instruction manual that all the holes in here that you can see there and along here are all solid plastic, and they will all need thinning out and opening up, or replacing with aftermarket, which is possible, before you put those 2 halves together. So potentially there could be quite a lot of work to do on the hull before you complete step 5. So don't be lulled into thinking this is going to be a quick build. If you want to do it with a bit more of an accurate feel, then you've got quite a bit of work to do, and that's without checking any hull dimensions and so on. So I've not done any research on this. I don't know how dimensionally accurate this is. I hear rumours that it's got 1 or 2 issues, but many of us will just build it because it looks like it, and that's good enough for us, you know. And personally, I build because I enjoy building in the main. Then we've got the stand, and we're putting it on the stand. So there's a number of decals there for different U-boats, so you just decide which one you're going to do, but obviously cross-reference that with your paint options. Then we appear to have the stern torpedo tube being installed, and then we've got the little pods that stick out where the propeller shafts come through. Pages are quite thin on this, so I have to be careful not to turn 2 at once. Yeah, so there we are, adding the propeller shafts, which look like they'll be rotatable, and from the pictures it looks like we've got 2 propellers that are different, which is good, as it should be. Then we've got the stern planes going in. Looks like we've got some holes to drill, but they are giving us diameters, so that's good, and that's for the rudders. Got the assembly that goes underneath the rudders there, and then we've got the bow planes going in. Step 17, got the bow plane supports, and we've got the anchors going in. Interestingly, we've got the hydrophones there as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they look like. Then that looks like periscope, is it? And then there's a mechanism being built in there, so I don't know whether that is for, yeah, the periscope or something else. Not quite sure at this stage. Don't know what that is. Decks going in, and then that is the periscope. So it's going in its housing, and it's telling us to have a look at these steps further on before we do anything with that. That isn't glued, so it will rotate. Okay, so we put those in, and then we've got the command tower being built up. So this is likely to be the most complex part of the build in terms of part counts. Got the navigation lights being highlighted there for painting, pulling the structure together. Nice to see we've got separate parts for the internal lining. That'll make painting easier. Radio loop and so on going in. I can understand what some parts are, but I'm no expert on these things. Deck at the back there, and then yeah, we've got the wind deflector going around. Then we're building the gun, which looks like the main gun. So there's a few parts on there. I imagine we've got some photo etch for that, no doubt though. Well, we're on step 38 now, continuing with the gun. Looks like it's fairly comprehensive. That's the anti-aircraft gun. Looks like we've got a twin anti-aircraft guns on this version. Hatches going on. Got some ladders. No doubt they'll look a bit chunky being plastic ladders. And then plastic railings, and no doubt we've got replacements for that. I know there should be some little seats and things built into that, but don't appear to be there. Don't know whether they were detachable, possibly. Life preservers, hand rungs, and then we've got more railing going in. Then we're moving down the hull and putting in some more hatch covers, capstans, booms and the like. And then we've got rigging, which is done with thread, so we might need to look at that about replacing the thread. And it looks like we are supplied with the blocks, so that's good. Then step 52, a little bit of drilling to support us with the rigging at the bow. Step 53 completes the rigging at the stern, and that looks like we are done. 53 steps, 22 pages. So we then got the paint instructions. So let's turn this around, have a look at that. So this first paint instruction says all versions. So we have a flag there. We can see the rigging, which is helpful, and then we've got paint instructions for some of the little components there, which is also helpful. And even though we've already seen it in the instructions, they are calling out some of them again. So this is the basic paint colours, and that shows that on the deck there. Then if we turn over, we've got an option for U997. So it'd be interesting to do a little bit of research on uboat.net and get some back history of these, which will help. So this is quite a complex camouflage pattern here, and it's the one with the bicycle on it with a torpedo. It's quite an interesting decal. Then we have U295, which gives us a different scheme. Again, a lot easier to do. Has a yellow stripe for some reason. I'm not sure. Oh, and on the deck, so I'm guessing that's recognition. Not seen that before. And just the one decal on the front there. So it doesn't give us any operational year or who the commander was or anything like that, so we'd have to find that out for ourselves. Then U307, where we have just a camouflaged conning tower and not along the length of the boat. Be quite an interesting one to do though, with all that black mottling all over it, and the blue. And again, just the one decal. Then we've got U324. So we've got lots of paint options. All credit to Revel, lots of paint options. Again, just one decal. This is a nice simple one. It's quite a striking one actually. Yeah, I quite like that in a sort of disruptive form. Then we've got a very simple one, U995, that has the Olympics logo on, which is interesting. Maybe someone on there was an Olympic champion. Again, you'd have to do your research and understand it. U995, different again. No camouflage, so nice and simple, and that also has the Olympics on. More decals on that one. U1002, again another one with a yellow stripe. And then U1023, another one with a yellow stripe. Interesting. I'm not, maybe it's because I mainly see black and white photos, but I'm not aware of them having yellow stripes, and we've got 3 of them here with yellow stripes. So I quite like the idea of doing one with a yellow stripe, I think. And then our last one, another yellow stripe, U1105. So let's have a look at the decals. Now, somehow the decals have slipped out of the instruction manual. We found that in the instruction manual. They've slipped out and got a bit crunched up in the box, but we will flatten them out in the instruction manual, and they don't look like they're damaged. Printed in Italy, they feel a little bit thick, and they're, I mean, really most of the decals are to do with the display stand, and you can choose whether you're going to say submarine or U-boat. Yeah, I quite like them. Revel do quite good stands actually compared to many. And then we've got these decals for the command tower that we've seen for the various different options. The most complex one being this one that's made up of 4 parts for the cyclist, and I'm guessing that's to fit around all the structure of the tower. But other than feeling a bit thick, they look okay. The register looks good, colours are nice, and not much in the way of additional carrier film, so there's nothing wrong with those, I don't think. The flag is paper, and yeah, it could look alright if you glue it to a bit of foil so you can get some shape into it. Obviously you've got to put your own cross on it if you wish to, but changing it out for a decal or a steel one from the likes of Edward might be a better option if that's possible. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to look at the plastic parts. Now we've seen the instructions, and then we'll come back to the photo etch and the other items that make it a Platinum edition separately as if they were aftermarket, because essentially that's what they are. So we're going to start with the hull, and our hull is basically 2 halves. Fit seems to be fairly good, and the first thing I've noticed is we've got the little location points here and here for the stand, so you can choose to take those off if you like. The overall look isn't bad. Now, as I've already said, dimensionally, couldn't tell you how accurate this is, but it looks like a U-boat to me. Let's take a closer look at the detail. So as we look at the bow, I can feel lots and lots of fastener detail, rivet detail. So that's going to really look nice when we come to do some weathering and washers and what have you. And we've got rows of rivets and bits and pieces to really make it look good. We need to cross-reference that. If you want to do an accurate depiction, there is lots and lots of reference material for U-boats out there. So it wouldn't take much to get this sorted and understand what's right and what's wrong. If you just want to build it because it looks like a U-boat, then I think you've got a really good point here to start with. Clearly, all of these little dashes all should be openings and need to be opened up, and they will look a lot better with them opened up. It will be very time consuming. You'll also need to get in and thin it out because the material is quite thick for it to look authentic. Otherwise it's going to look a little bit odd. You could paint the insides black to sort of help make that disappear, but thinning it out is the best way. Or you could, there is a company that does replacements, and what you do is you basically cut holes and put photo etch in and blend it all in, and then you've got nice, thin, authentic looking holes. Now the other advantage of doing that is some of these holes are slats and slots are all the wrong shape because of the moulding on that curve means that they form slightly and they're facing that way when they should be facing that way. So you could reshape the plastic ones. That's probably going to make them oversized, I'd imagine, so you might want to fill it and put new ones in. That's going to be a real pain though, so the photo etch might be the way to go. Now this I think is the hydrophones, and we've got raised lumps there, but I suspect they should be holes as well. So if you think about ships like Bismarck and Tirpitz and the other capital ships, their hydrophone arrays are little holes in the hull. I think they should be holes, so that needs looking into. I might be wrong, but I think they should be. But otherwise it looks nice. The detail is crisp. We've got lots of raised detail here that is going to really help us with rusty washers and the like, if that's what we're going to do, and sludge and slime. And then as we get to the stern, we get an intensity of rivet detail again, and more openings that this time aren't so bad. These are a bit deformed though, and will want sorting out. But you could get away with this as it is. You could paint all of those in a black or something like that, and they wouldn't look bad at all. There's little slopes on these ones, which look quite authentic as well. So yeah, I think regardless of how you want to build this, this doesn't look bad at all. If you want to put lots of effort in, it's doable, and if you don't, it's presentable. So I don't really have any issues with that. How it goes together will be the real trick here. So all the sprues appear to be bagged up in pairs. So and then the bags are folded over and taped down. So should be able to just pull these out, hopefully. There we go. Right, so we get rid of that one for a sec. And this first sprue we're going to look at primarily has deck on it. So in a 1/72 scale, they should be able to do this scale accurate in plastic moulding. So what have we got? We've got 2 deck pieces there. We've got some of the command tower details, gun base. That's part of the rigging setup. Torpedo tube door by the looks of it. More deck. That's the underside of that, I think. Parts of the command tower. Those are the inside little wooden facing parts. Some hatches, torpedo tube covers, gun parts. I've got to say, first thing I've spotted is that the gun barrels all look to be slightly bowed. I think, yeah, they're all being pushed out of line slightly, but we might be able to replace those with brass barrels, I would imagine. So everything looks quite nice and crisp. The wood deck looks really quite nice. That would be easy to paint. And looks quite good. Yeah, I have no real issues with that deck at all. I imagine we've got photo etch details to go on some of these covers and things, but actually I have no real issues with the deck. Yeah, everything's crisp and clean, and there's a little bit of flash in places, but not much at all. That all looks all right, doesn't it? Let's just flip this over. So we've got some ejector pin marks in the gun shield there, which is quite thick actually. Probably worth replacing that either with a photo etch replacement, or if there's not one in the photo etch that we've got, or you could copy that with plastic card, thinner plastic card, and replace it easy enough. Wind deflector, yeah, that you could thin those down possibly, or again replace them with plastic card. Yeah, no major issues with that at all. Let me run this by. You can press pause at any point if you want to look with more detail. Okay, that's the first sprue. Okay, our second sprue has more deck pieces, and then we've got the command tower main sections, plastic railings, and so on. Now, the plastic railings for me, they need replacing. They're a bit chunky. We could get some wire and do a bit of soldering, and I think we could probably do as good a job of it as we've got there. I'm hoping we've got some replacement in the photo etch, to be honest. But otherwise we might want to look at replacing these a little bit, which won't be easy because of the shapes, but we could use these as templates. There's some nice detail in terms of rivets. Again, we need to check that we've got everything that should be there, and some of these might be holes that we've got to drill out again, but everything's nice and crisp. And then on this lower section, yeah, again, everything's quite nice and crisp. It's not softly moulded. Maybe those hatches are a little bit, but we could sharpen those up. Got some little hand wheels, hand rungs, and bits and pieces. Again, the deck looks really nice. I'd be quite happy to paint that as it is. With the slats, it looks quite good. Yeah, there's some sink in the gun. I suspect that would be easy enough to fill. It does look a little bit basic, the gun, I think. Yeah, hopefully we've got some replacement parts for that as well. There's some ejector pin marks on this now. I think that might be visible. So some work to be done to clean that up. But in the main, we are not bad at all. Our next sprue, not many parts on here. We've got torpedo bow doors, and not sure if they're the rudders or bow or stern planes. What I can tell you is they look quite greasy, so these parts will need a good wash. There's a little bit of sink just there. I don't know if you can catch that in the light. There we go. A little bit of sink, minor stuff. And then we've got the little frame that the propeller shafts go through, and quite a heavy seam on there to clean up. If we can capture that, there we go. But again, it's nothing difficult to do. It does seem like there's quite a bit of seam on some of these parts, but it's not an issue. That's quite nicely done, the little hatch there. Nothing wrong with any of these. You can see all that little rivet detail on the doors there. And then that'll be one of the hull braces. The next sprue has even fewer parts. 2 parts for our stand. It's slightly bowed, this, but no doubt we'll straighten up when we come to use it. That is, I think, the inside of the stern torpedo, so that's an unseen part ultimately. Then we've got the little, this is where the propeller shafts come out, and the supports for the stern planes, was it? All good. Our next sprue has a variety of parts on it. There's no letters on these sprues, they just continue to be numbered all the way through. So we've got the life preservers, some of the smaller parts for the command tower, the rigging blocks, which now I see them are not spectacular. We might want to look at doing something different with those. More of the propeller shaft openings. Then we've got rudders and bow planes, and there is sink in them. Again, nothing major. Then we've got the openings for the periscopes, and there they are. Not quite sure what that is, a boom or something, but doesn't look bent as you wouldn't believe that. So we'll be replacing that with rod, no doubt. Yeah, that needs replacing. Yeah, you can feel the sink in there. It's actually worse than it looks on camera, but because there's no detail on these whatsoever, it's easy enough to just get them Mr. Surfaced up and sanded down. Believe it or not, this is our last sprue of parts. So as I said right at the start, the actual plastic count is quite low. We've got the structure there that goes underneath the rudders. We've got the bow torpedo openings, and the framework that goes around the bow doors there. The propellers, now in terms of the blades, they look quite thin, but they also look a bit flat like paddles. Now Pontos in their set replace them, and I often think metal ones look a bit chunky. These don't look chunky, but they somehow don't quite look right, but it'd be worth having a look at those. Whether we could do something with them to put some shape in them or something, I don't know. Parts of the stand, and then the brace for the hull. So not many parts really to complete the kit as a plastic kit on its own. So probably we need to look at the other 800 parts. Right, our instructions for the photo etch and decks and brass bits and so on. Now, just to demonstrate a point at the top here, it says designed by Pontos Model Hobbyway. If you order Pontos stuff direct from them, it's Hobbyway, the website who you go through, so I imagine that's the parent company. So it has a little warning there, tells you you've got small parts and gives you some tips on how to clean the parts up and how to remove them from their frets and so on. And then this little purple box here says anything covered in purple we're not using. And then we start with a list of parts, and it does tell you what they are. So control room periscope, attacking periscope, radar base. I don't know what a UZO is, but we've got one. So it gives you the list of all the little brass parts, and it tells you how many you've got of each one. So wire support boom ×4, for example. Hatch springs ×1, capstan ×1. So we've got some replacement parts in there as well. Then when we come to the photo etch, we've got 2 frets here, which they're calling 1 and 2. One has lots and lots of little parts, just a couple highlighted in purple there, and then one has got some of the larger parts like the steel deck, and looks like we've got some railing as well, so that's nice. Then we have wooden deck, and we'll have a look at all of that in a minute. Now these are individual A3 sheets, so they're not stapled or attached. So I'll just turn this over, and then we are going that way around to look at it. But that doesn't fit in shot, so we'll keep it that way. So you'll have to bear with me to be able to keep this in shot we will look at the thing side on, but we'll get a general understanding, won't we? So we've got deck etch items to go on there, so replacement hatches and so on and so forth, most of which will be able to overlay on the parts. We might have to remove a plastic handle or two. Doesn't tell us that we do, but I imagine that this is all being attached on top of their wooden deck. So it does show you here we've got hinges separate and handles separate, so it's not just a part, it's 4 parts in total. We've got some modifications like new handles to the various hatches. I'm not quite sure what that is. Is that? Oh, it's the capstan, which looks quite a complicated little assembly, doesn't it? How many parts? There's probably more parts in that than the original capstan. That looks bonkers, but anyway. Then we've got some photo etch components that we are replacing the molded parts for, including the hydrophones, I'm glad to see. So that they will look better, although we won't have holes, so don't know. Depends on your choice there, I think. Then we've got a boom going in some form of housing which runs along the deck there. Handrails showing us what we're cutting out and what we're replacing, and then we've got the positions of them being marked out there and there. Got some parts to remove, and then all of these little red numbers are shouting out photo etch parts we need to put on. So you can see all those little red numbers there. So you can see all those little red numbers there. And then we've got some tiny modifications to the plastic parts. A lot of it is adding to it. So adding detail, texture, so on and so forth. So just little enhancements. As we turn over the page, we're building up a more authentic looking radar set, or antenna if you like. And we've got another antenna being built up here. And then we've got modifications to the plastic parts there where we're replacing the hinges, hatch details, and that looks quite nice if you're going to have it up. There's no interior detail, so whether we'd do that or not, I'm not sure. The antenna looks really nice when completed. That does look the business, and so does the hatch. So I still don't know what a UZO is, but that's it being built up. There seems to be a lot of parts on it. Some nice close-up pictures in the instructions. So you're going to have to cross-reference this to when you're constantly checking your photo etch as you build, unless you do, like I do, a little plan ahead. Quite a lot of detail going on to this gun mount here. You can see that looks quite nice when done. The hatch, periscopes in place. Then we've got a voice tube and we're putting the little lids on it and stuff. That's all very nice. Some form of box, not quite sure what that is. And then the radio antenna. Right, next page, we've got the inside surfaces of the command tower, and we've got wooden parts going on where we've got wood. And for me, it doesn't look good at all. Firstly, you've got all that laser scorching, which doesn't look right. But secondly, the colour's all wrong. It's way, way, way too pale. yeah, I don't think that looks good at all, to be honest. We'll have a look at the wooden deck in a minute, but there's lots of wooden parts being put in there by Pontos, and quite a bit of photo etch detailing going in. Certainly going to look busy when it's done. We've got some boxes to make, and then we're replacing all of those hatches, which I said some of them looked a bit soft molded, so that'll crispen that up nicely. And then we've got railings being done here, replacement ladders for the plastic ladders, so that'll look nice with their supports on. Looks like we're using some of the railings but adding to them and modifying, so again I might want to replace that with some soldered wire possibly. So the next page deals with the gun that I said looked a little bit basic, and I was hoping that we'd have some photo etch, and they've chucked tons of it at it. So hopefully under paint that will look really quite involved, which is what we're looking for. There's a lot of photo etch going on there. We do appear to have a replacement gun shield, which I'm pleased about because that was an obvious thing to do. And it looks like we've got brass barrel as well, so that should look really quite good when put in place. Quite a complex assembly actually, a lot of parts, but it's 1/72 scale, so we're not working on stuff that's tiny. Yeah, I think the gun looks good when done. Then we're updating the anti-aircraft weaponry. Again, we've got brass barrels, so that's nice. All those little bent ones we can leave on the sprue, get that recycled. Steel decks going on, and then some other components that we need to put on around there. Some complex bending and stuff to do as well. And then we've got some A-frame supports for the wire rigging. All looks nice, doesn't it? And the last page has some completed build shots so you can cross-reference. A lot of this has already been shouted out, and then you're just using this as a reference guide to check your orientations are all correct. So I quite like that. As Pontos instructions go, they look not bad at all, but there's usually mistakes when Pontos are involved, so it's worth going through all your parts and checking them off and making sure that they've not missed anything, because they do that. But that looks quite nice when done, doesn't it? Right then, let's look at these Pontos decks. Now, a little while ago I did a video comparing a number of different brands of wooden overlay decks, and Pontos did not come out favourably. And the reason why they didn't come out favourably is the reason why I don't like these at all. And it's to do with, let's see, that's the worst one, all of this laser scoring. And that's to do with how they've programmed and plotted the laser. And it is dreadful. You've got a lot of laser scorch that's collecting, and when you look at it at a distance, it simply does not look right. And what they've tried to do is give you an idea of slats over supporting beams, and it really doesn't look right at all. And I don't think the colour's right at all. Now, you could dye it. It is wood after all, so, and you've got plenty of spare material, so you could mess around with different stains and see how you could get that a bit darker. But that's also going to make the laser scorching darker. Now, having looked at the decks, and all right, they're not perfect, but they were very good actually. So I think it'd be better to paint the wood than to put this on, because I don't think this is actually adding anything to it particularly. Yeah, now I guess this is personal preference and some people will disagree with me, but I don't think that looks right, and I think it's unlikely I'm going to use them. Yeah, unlikely I'll use them. So our turned brass parts come in 4 Ziploc bags, and this first one has in it the bollards, and because they're turned brass, they're absolutely lovely. They're all perfect. They'll all be machined on the same setting, so you know they're all the same. I think they look great. It's a nice swap out. Our second bag here, this appears to have some booms of some type in there, and possibly some anti-aircraft gun barrels. As always with Pontos, very nicely, delicately done. Then when we look at the third bag, we've got the capstern, some hatch springs, and the main gun barrel there, which has got the little flared end on, so that's a nice swap out as well. Then our final bag has periscopes, which are really nicely done, and that thing that we don't know, or I don't know what it is, and these look like those booms that went along the side there. So really nice brass parts, good swap outs for the kit parts. First etched fret is brass, and this is the one that has the radar replacement, the gun fittings, all the deck hatches, and lots of other bits and pieces, tiny ones, handles, and the boom boxes and bits and pieces, all very nicely done. And there you go. You can pause that and have a close look at the parts if you wish. Then our last photo etch sheet is nickel, and we've got some of the railings which need to be a little bit thicker and stronger. We've got steel decks there, and other deck fittings, the gun shield, and one or two small things, the ladders and bits and pieces. So anything that needs a little bit of strength in it is coming off the nickel sheet. So yeah, I'm less worried about these now, having known that they're nickel rather than brass. We do get some rigging thread, which we probably wouldn't use. So there we have it, Revel's 1:72 scale Type 7 U-boat. What is my first impression? Well, let's start with level 5. It's not really level 5 at all. I think anybody who's tackled half a dozen plastic models could build the plastic kit with no problem at all. So I think the actual kit itself, the plastic kit, is probably nothing more than a level 2. It's not difficult, there's not many parts to it. The parts are all fairly large, there's nothing that's fiddly. So I think the actual plastic kit is a fairly simple construction. What then takes it to level 5, of course, is all this photo etch and you need to have had some experience of photo etch to get the best out of it. It's going to need annealing, you're going to need some experience in bending and shaping and possibly soldering, so that it's quite an involved kit, and that's what then takes it to a level 5. So Revel are quite right to say it's a level 5 kit, because it absolutely is. Most of those 832 parts are going to be that upgrade set. The model itself, when built, is going to be very impressive. I think there's more needs to be done to it to get it to where you'd want it to be if you were going to do it to a museum standard. So all these openings that you can see in the artwork there, you need to be putting those in yourself. So there is some work to be done. Even if you are just building the plastic kit version of this, there is still a bit of work to be done to get it to look the part. But fundamentally, it's a really nice kit. Now my understanding is people build these and radio control them and so on and so forth because it's a good size model. I won't be doing that. I'm just going to build it for display purposes. Let's see, highlights. The subject matter and the scale is good. It really does bring to life that U-boat. The number of paint options you've got for it is really good. They're not decal heavy, so it's easy for them to do that, but absolutely why not. The construction seems simplified, yet all the parts look crisp and well formed, so I can't imagine there's any issues putting it together. Certainly the two hull halves go together okay. The Pontos upgrade set, although it's not the full set that they sell separately, does enough to take it from being a nice kit to a really lovely kit. I think the things that are missing, some of the resin parts and bits and pieces, actually they're sort of minor details. I think the major stuff is crossed off. I think the downside for me is the quality of the wooden deck. Again, I know it's a personal thing, but for me it doesn't look right, and it needs some work to get the colour right. Personally, and it might just be me, I don't like it, so I won't use it. But I can see why some people might think it's a way to go. But that's the only downside I can think of, really. It's a nice kit. What more can you say? I think it's not as big a project as you might think. But you can certainly turn it into a huge project because there is such a wide breadth of weathering opportunities for this. You can do it as new, you can do it Atlantic bashed. Yeah, I mean, there's loads you could do with this. I think it's absolutely a wonderful little kit, and it's not so little. So there you have it. If you're interested in buying the Revel Platinum Edition, I don't know that it's still in production at the time I'm filming this, but certainly there is lots of them knocking around, and they're easy to get hold of. So shop around and make sure you get a decent price, because some of the plastic only kits are selling at the same price as the Platinum Edition. So make sure you know what you're buying into. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thanks for looking in. You enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very, very soon.